Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Komet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Pretty good night tonight. I was just getting some last minute things together here. We got some additional news here right before recording time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting some of that new information out there.
Yeah, kind of a scoop for the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Yeah, a couple things. So that'll be good to talk about them. Yeah. How about you? How's everything going? How's your week?
Pretty good week. Very busy at work. Yeah, I actually got a 4-day weekend coming up. I got Friday and Monday off. So very excited about that and excited to talk about soccer tonight.
So, and as we always do, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
So our podcast focuses on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk a lot about Cavalry FC and the Calgary Wild, but basically anything soccer related with the specific Calgary focus we chat about. So all the way from the grassroots and amateur leagues and teams up to the post-secondary and professionals.
And this week we'll be talking about training camps, Cavalry FC, they're in camp, and some signings to talk about. Calgary Wild also have begun their training camp. We got some updates there. A few other player updates about Calgarians playing around the world, and a big soccer tournament coming up this weekend. Scott, you reminded me about this. I think we talked about it last year too.
Yeah. Well, we always get a press release about Calgary Minor Soccer Association's annual Family Day long weekend indoor soccer tournament. So that landed in our inbox this morning, and we figured it was prudent to include in this week's episode, which otherwise is quite similar to last week's, right? Like we haven't had any preseason games to talk about, but still plenty of news on the player movement front. So let's get right into it.
This is Dan Klum, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Okay, let's talk about Cavalry FC and their training camp. Last week we had one new signing for the Cavs, and this week we had a couple more.
Yeah, last week we talked about Harry Payton, the central midfielder who had just joined the club. Now we have a couple of signings that Cavalry announced this week. And Jason, last week we spent a bit of the episode speculating who we thought could replace Fraser Aird at right back, if that was possibly going to be, Michael Harms slotting in and getting his chance to shine, or if Levi Lang could be, pushed from center back to the wing and kind of become more of a right back. But we saw two fullbacks signed this week, so I think chances are pretty high that one of these players will probably be challenging for a spot at right back.
The first of those two signings is Nathaniel Edwards. He played for Toronto FC and TFC2 for the last couple years or so. In the press release, he's listed as a forward, but my understanding is when he played for Toronto, he pretty much played right back.
Yeah, and I think he's an attacking right back based on his stats. In 49 appearances for TFC2, he got 5 goals and 6 assists in MLS Next Pro. So that's a pretty good offensive contribution for a defender. So at first glance, I would assume that, yes, he plays at right back, but he's going to be the kind of player who bombs forward pretty often, which, is similar to the role that Fraser Aird had.
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be a player that pushes forward. I did speak with someone that knows a lot about Toronto FC, and they just thought it was very amusing that he was listed as a forward because he never played there when he was with Toronto. But yeah, I think he sounds interesting, and I think he's going to end up getting some time at right back and maybe further up as well, kind of like Mihail Gerasimenko did last year on the left side.
Definitely, and actually in the press release, Tommy Wheeldon Jr. does talk about Nathaniel Edwards' versatility in the sense that he can play on either side of the pitch. So who knows, maybe he would even play a bit at left back, although I think we have a little bit more depth there at the moment in Cavalry. Jason, other than his career with TFC and TFC2, he played his collegiate soccer with Purdue University, Fort Wayne, made 40 appearances for the Mastodons, and was named to the Horizon League Academic Honor Roll 2 years in a row. So he's a pretty smart guy as well as a good footballer. He did actually transfer to Syracuse and made 21 appearances for them and earned academic all-district honors and was named to the ACC all-academic team. And other than that, he has experience in League One Ontario, or I guess they're called Ontario Premier League now, with Vaughan at Surrey, which, is a club that has a lot of history in that league. But he didn't play that many games for them before he moved up to MLS Next Pro. And originally he's from Brampton, which I think, as a lot of Canadian soccer fans know, is kind of a hotbed for Canadian soccer talent.
Junior highlights from Brampton and Kyle Aaron and
Atiba Hutchinson, and I think quite a few more than that. But yeah, it's obviously it's probably the most represented municipality in the Canadian men's national team.
The other signing for Cavalry is someone who plays on the other side of the pitch, Curtis Ofori.
Yeah, 20-year-old comes to the club from Red Bull New York, their reserve team, and actually just won the MLS Next Pro Cup with that team in 2025. I believe he's a left back. Actually saw some clips of him on Cavalry's social media today showing him dribbling in the middle of a small-sided game, and he's definitely playing on the left side. So I do believe that left back is his primary position. But yeah, born in New York, Ghanaian descent, has represented Ghana at the international youth level, I believe, the U20s, and just 20 years old. So very early into his career still.
One thing about him that I thought was particularly interesting is he signed a pro contract when he was 15 years old. He was the youngest player ever signed by the New York Red Bulls, 15 years and 122 days. He never played for the big MLS club during the time he was with the Red Bulls, but kind of interesting stat, signing at 15 years.
Yeah, and what caught my eye was the fact that he's already made 82 professional appearances for Red Bull's reserves, which by the age of 20 is pretty impressive. So yeah, he was definitely one who got rolling very quickly, and I would assume he was playing for the reserves at like the age of 16 or 17.
Yeah, well, in 2021 he played for them when they were still in the USL. So yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. I noticed a couple really weird parallels between these two signings. Both of them are similar ages, although Edwards is a little bit older, but they're both fullbacks that have a lot of offensive skill and push forward. They also both played in MLS Next Pro last year. Both of them signed deals with their respective MLS clubs last year. But even after they signed their deal with the MLS club, neither one of them actually appeared in a league match.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of parallels between them, and they're both kind of coming from the East Coast, although Toronto's not East Coast, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it's interesting, and it shows that Cavalry has their eye not just on local young talent, but they cast their net pretty far when it comes to who and where they're scouting.
Is this the first American that has signed with Calgary FC?
I want to say no, but maybe it is.
I was going to research that. I never did in time before we recorded, but there sure haven't been too many Americans that have signed. Ofori could be very much in the mold of Mikhail Gerasimenkov. In fact, I can see a lot of parallels there too. So,
yeah, so we know two more players who will be playing for Cavalry in 2026, Jason, but we're still not sure. We talked about this last week as well, if Ali Musi will be back with the club. His status remains unknown. And the clock is definitely ticking, isn't it?
I'm not sure how many more roster spots are even available throughout the CPL. I think every team's got, a few spots left. But when you're in a salary cap league, he's going to be a significant hit to that cap. So I would think that a lot of teams have already made plans and they're looking at filling those last roster spots with not major addition signings that are going to really upset the balance of the salary cap. So I don't know. It's a bit of a head scratcher, but still not signed.
And then there are 4 players who you've confirmed are in camp at the moment. But these 4 players are vying for 3 spots on the team. And those would be the 3 U Sports contracts. And mostly familiar names here.
I was able to confirm that all of these players are in camp right now. And 2 names, returnees from last year, Max Piepgras and Owen Antoniuk. And then the 2 draft picks, Emmanuel Dan Adekugbe and Luke Ayama are both in camp as well. Scott, I know that it's hard for us to speculate on these U Sports players, but any thoughts about what we know right now about them? Like, we know Piepgras had a really good year. In fact, I think it wouldn't be surprising even if he signed a regular contract, not a U Sports contract. But what do you think? Do you think maybe this is the year Owen Antoniuk might get some minutes?
Well, he got minutes last year, actually, more than I thought he might get. I'm not sure exactly how many appearances he made. He did. I think he played around 3 or 4 games last year, Jason's. But I do know that I think a few of those, maybe all of them, were off the bench. But overall, I mean, considering their experience and the fact that they've been with the club before, you have to assume that, yeah, Max and Owen will be back. And then Dan Adekugbe and Luki Hama will probably be battling it out for the third and final U Sports position.
When you look at the roster right now as it stands, and I realize that the senior roster and the U Sports roster are not the same, but really, I think the Cavs could still use some bodies up front still. I think Veiling, Musi, Salouf, all gone at this point. They brought Jay Herdman back, and Nathaniel Edwards was listed as a forward, but really seems like he's more likely to play further back. So they need some people to get some minutes up there, don't you think?
I guess they do, yeah. It's Dan Adekugbe who's the forward, right? He was with Trinity Western. Yeah, he scored 8 goals in 15 appearances last year, so definitely has a scoring touch. But considering this will be his intro to professional sport, so hard to say.
Hey y'all, this is Jorian Bauckham, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So let's talk about the Calgary Wild. Jason, they did announce a new signing a few days ago. Another goalkeeper, this one from Canada, actually born in Calgary originally, but raised in Vernon and represented UBC Okanagan before moving to Denmark a few years ago to begin her professional career. Molly Race.
She played for, Scott, do you want to try the pronunciation of the team she played for in Denmark?
FC Nordsjælland?
Something like that. So, so now the Wild have announced 2 new players, and both of them are keepers, Caitlin Talbert and Molly Race, who essentially, I guess, replace Stephanie Bukovic and Jackie Burns. So we're still waiting for some more roster announcements. And apparently, by the time most of you are listening to this, we'll know who one of those players are.
Yes, because they're going to announce a player on Friday morning, as well as a goalkeeping coach.
Yeah, we know that. We don't know the identities, but that will be out there in the morning. And then we also were able to get confirmation that there is one other player signed for the club. Their announcement will happen next week. So, Scott, when you look at it, there are 4 unannounced roster spots, but really, as far as I can tell, there's only 2 roster spots left. When you add in these other 2 players, they're going to be at 23 players.
Yeah, you did a really good job with this, Jason. It's a great visual showing kind of a side-by-side comparison of the team's 2025 roster with what they have so far for the 2026 season. And it's astounding how similar these 2 rosters are. But basically, we're waiting to hear who will replace Ali Green, who primarily played at left back, and then Mike Rolfsema, who was a starting center back pretty much every game. But other than that, every player is back, right? In defense, we have Grace Storty, Michaela Moore, Kaylee Brooks, and Tilly James, and Talia White and Michelle Romero. In midfield, we have Jackie Sawicki, Sonia O'Neill, Farkunda Mutaj, Maggie Doherty-Howard, Anderson Williams, Keelan Stewart, and Janaea Robertson.
And at forwards, we have Callie Johnson, Sarita Thurton, Catherine Harvey, Jorian Bauckham, and Tegan Stewart.
Yeah, and obviously, we've seen the departures of Maddie Wilson, Christy Gray, Danielle Steer, and then the 4 players we've mentioned previously. But overall, as something we mentioned last week, a lot of continuity this year.
Right. So let's talk about this for a minute, about the comparisons to what we had last year to this year. So we've got the 2 new keepers replacing the 2 previous keepers. I realize that we don't have tons of insight as far as, what to expect. Like neither of us, I think, have watched any film or anything on these new keepers. But from a roster spot perspective, it's pretty much a like for like, 1 import and 1 Canadian replacing 1 import and 1 Canadian as keepers. Any thoughts? Like, I guess, like I said, it's a bit unfair to put you on the spot there and ask, what are your expectations for the keepers?
I have no idea what to expect. I don't know. I think Caitlin Talbert has the resume to suggest that she's the most experienced, so she will probably be starting. It seems like, despite 2.5 years playing in Europe, Molly Race doesn't have the same number of games under her belt. So my expectation is that Caitlin Talbert will be the number 1. sort of how Stephanie Bukovic was the number one last year, but Molly Race could prove me wrong.
Yeah, I think that's my assessment of it as well. When you look at the other 4 roster spots available, there would be room for 2 imports and 2 Canadians. Any thoughts about what position and what type of players you would be expecting to fill in some of those spots right now, Scott? Like you mentioned before about, well, the 2 players at the back need to be replaced. But like, what do you think, if you were the GM of the Wild, what types of players and positions would you be looking for?
Well, if you think about the fact that Christy Gray and Danielle Steer and Maddie Wilson have departed, I think all 3 of them were primarily wingers. So I do think that they need another winger, possibly 2 more wide players, or they need to put some of these players who we would call forwards on the wing. Like Sarita Thurton, for instance, I think of her as a winger first and foremost, but you and I actually talked about how she scored her 1 goal last year when she was basically playing as a number 9.
I kind of just put you on the spot there a little bit, but I sort of had this on the agenda a bit earlier, so I did a bit of thinking about this. And they need like a big center back, someone that's going to be capable of starting, essentially replacing Mika Rolsma. Currently, they only have Talia White and Michaela Moore as natural center backs. So it seems like they need somebody who can compete for minutes and get a good chunk of minutes there. I think that is like a top priority. And then I think that would probably be a place where you could spend one of those import spots. And then maybe you spend the other import spot up front, like we talked about, like, replacing Danielle Steer or Christy Gray, or like players sort of similar to that. But yeah, like the other 2 spots to be Canadians. And I think, you want to look at maybe bringing some depth in at some other positions. But I think that those 2 things, bringing in a solid top-notch center back and somebody that has some offensive skill up front, I think those are really the priorities right now.
So who do you foresee starting at left wing right now if those are the 2 positions that get filled?
How were they lining up before?
Usually Christy Gray would be starting, and then oftentimes Maddie Wilson or Danielle Steer would get... Well, Danielle was more of a forward, but yeah, Christy Gray often started at left wing.
I think whoever they bring in as a new player, maybe that's going to be the expectation that they can play that position. Because right now, how does it all line up with the forwards they have right now? Like you've got Jorian Baucom kind of playing that bit of more of a center forward type position. And then how does Callie Johnson really fit into that right now, as far as you can see?
I honestly would like to see Callie Johnson dropping a little bit deeper and almost playing like a number 10, maybe even an advanced number 10. I agree, though, like Jorian Baucom has the physicality to kind of be that dominating number 9. We saw her hold up play in the second half of last season, really gave the Wild a different flavor. But we also know that Callie Johnson scored a lot of goals until she got injured. So I do think that those 2 can work together and play off of each other. But I don't think that they would be... One would have to drop deeper, and I would see that being Callie Johnson.
Yeah, that would make sense. And then Sarita Thurton, playing on the one side, I think, and yeah, maybe the other side is sort of just an open position for one of the new players. Maybe that's how it all works out.
Yeah, I actually wonder if Catherine Harvey, how she would look at left wing. I do think that when she played, she often did drift over to the left side of the pitch, even though she was more of like a forward. There's her. There's also Tegan Stewart, who I think could slot in at left wing. So yeah, TBD, who's going to play on the left, considering the departures we've seen. But I do agree with you, though. Like, they need another center back, 1 minimum, and preferably someone who is really going to be solid, considering that last year, their defense did let the Wild down on occasion.
For sure. One more thing about the Wild that I wanted to add in, and something I just uncovered just before recording. There's a new Wild in town, isn't there? And it's not the Calgary Wild.
No, but you'd be forgiven for thinking it was. And when I first saw you send me this, I had a kind of double take. Like, wait, did the Calgary Wild already change their crest? No, there's a team called the Vermont Wild, and they have a very similar kind of badge to the Calgary team.
They're a brand new club. They're in the WPSL. I think that's like a kind of a similar type league that Foothills played in when they were playing in that American league. That they're kind of the same idea, pro-am kind of setup. Anyway, yeah, they were just announced last week, and yeah, Vermont Wild, and the logo is an owl. The similarities are striking, and I looked at this and I thought, is this a new affiliated club somehow, or is it just a blatant case of trademark infringement?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty on the nose. Like you say, it looks like they've kind of turned a W into an owl, which is exactly the concept that the Calgary team is going for. So
I think you could make an argument that, well, we decided we want to call our team the Wild too, but to call your team the Wild and to use an owl as your mascot logo, like that just seems like, yeah, really, really, really on the nose.
Hey guys, this is Willie Akio, and you are tuned into the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So our next topic will be about the CMSA's Family Day Classic, taking over Family Day long weekend in Calgary. Unsurprisingly, Jason, this tournament just seems to get bigger and bigger. According to their news release, participation is up 16% from 2025. There are going to be 320 youth teams kicking balls around in Calgary this weekend.
Well, I guess they could make it a bit bigger this year because there is the new addition at the soccer center. So there is another indoor field available. So that's great. I think it's fantastic. Like, get these out of town teams, these local teams playing.
70 of those teams are coming from out of town. So that also gives a boost to Calgary businesses and hotels, especially at a time of year where tourism isn't quite as robust as during the warmer months. So yeah, great to see this just continue to grow. Kudos to the CMSA.
Yeah, matches will start on Friday and they'll run till Monday. And basically, if there is an indoor soccer facility near you, that's where it's going to be. I think the West Soccer Dome and the Soccer Center and the Shouldice Bubble and Macron, I think they all have matches.
Yep, 530 games in total. So obviously you need to use every facility you have at your disposal. And yeah, basically all day, every day this long weekend, there's going to be local soccer action going on in Calgary.
Hey, this is Charles Nana, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So our last segment, we're going to talk about Calgarians that are signing pro contracts in various places around the world. Last week, we had a few names, and then this week I found a bunch more. So let's talk about some of these players. They're plying their trade far and wide all around the world.
Yeah, and great work, Jason, on keeping tabs on so many of the people we've had on our podcast as guests. Let's start with Sebastian Dzikowski, former UBC Thunderbird from Calgary originally, back in Poland's 4th division with a club called MKS Czarny Polaniec. This is his 3rd stop in Poland's 4th tier.
Yeah, he was with another club earlier this year, but I think that club is doing rather poorly. I think they're right near the bottom of their conference in the 4th division. But this new club, they're battling for promotion right now. I think they're in 2nd place. Yeah, he's left a team that looks like they're going to go down even farther to a team that's got a shot of moving up.
Yeah, and then Adam Huskic, another former U Sports player. He was with UFC Dinos. He is currently playing in the European country of Georgia in the 2nd division over there with a club called Sioni Bolnisi.
So you know what's weird about this, Scott? Why does Georgia play a summer schedule like Canada does or Ireland does? I know that some of the nearby Baltic states, like, Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia and the Scandinavian countries, they're very northern. They play a summer schedule, but I don't think Georgia is that far north. But yeah, their preseason is on right now. That's a random bit of information. I didn't know it until I found out about Adam signing with this club.
They're not north. They share a border with Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and then Kazakhstan and Russia, right? Or is this?
Yeah, that's right.
Definitely not north. They're right on the Black Sea. So, but I think is it a very mountainous country? Could that be why?
I think so.
Climate, so maybe it is more of like a colder climate country.
Yeah, perhaps. I like I said, just a random bit of information that I didn't know about. But yeah, so they're just starting their season right now. So best of luck to Adam Huskic in Georgia.
Yeah, I have to confess, Georgia's probably the country in Europe that I know the least about. I believe their capital is called Tbilisi. I'm not sure if he's playing in the capital or in a different city somewhere else in the country, but definitely an adventure. And yeah, wish him best of luck.
Now we've got a few players from Calgary who are in Australia. Former podcast guest Charles Nana, who played for Trinity Western this past fall. He is signed for a team in the Brisbane area called the Logan Lightning.
Yeah, this is a state league in Queensland. So would this be technically, is it now the third division?
No, it's
Or would it still count as second?
So it's the second division. That second division that they have organized now called the Championship. It's essentially the winners of all the state leagues. So the second division is nationally is that championship competition, but it's consists of teams that are playing in all the state leagues. How's that for a convoluted explanation?
No, I know what you're saying. Hopefully our listeners do too. But yeah, Charles Nana, not the only Calgarian to be playing second division soccer in Australia. Two other podcast guests of ours also playing at that level, although in different states and leagues. Let's start with Elijah Adekugbe, Jason, because we thought he'd be sticking around the CPL, but it looks like he is going to be playing for a team in Melbourne called the Preston Lions in the Victoria League.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at this. I thought he would catch on somewhere else in the CPL, but he's in Melbourne, and I did track down. He does have a teammate that we're familiar with. He's never played with him before, but it's a guy with a real Calgary connection.
Yeah, great job finding this little tidbit out. But Cavalry player Leighton Brooks, he was with the club for the first half of, was it the 2024 season?
Yeah, 2024 season.
Yeah, 2024 season, and then left under mysterious circumstance. I'm kidding, not that mysterious, but he did depart the team halfway through the championship winning campaign. So yeah, he and Elijah will be lining up together this summer. Or I guess it's their winter.
And not really a new signing, but one to mention, Willie Akio, Calgary native, former Cavalry player. He is returning to the Marconi Stallions. They're in the Sydney area, and they play in the New South Wales League. So he's back with them again this year. And but another bit of news about him is international duty.
Yeah, he's been called up to play for South Sudan in their game against Eritrea. He has played for South Sudan before, right?
He has, but it's been a long time. Right when he was in Scotland, and I think right in the early times with Cavalry, I think he played some matches, but it's been quite a while for him. So yeah, congrats to him.
Cool to see, Jason, that I think this is 6 players or 5 players that we've had on the podcast in the last 2 years continue to be doing interesting things in their soccer careers, far from home.
Yeah, when you combine that with the players we mentioned last week, there have been a whole bunch of new signings of Calgarians. And yeah, it's fantastic to see. And what a way to sort of try to advance your career and see the world.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this episode downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcasting platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our archive and find other ways to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links to buy my book, Here Come the Cavalry, which is all about the history of pro soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media through X, Instagram, or Blue Sky, where our username is @YYCSoccer403. Thanks for listening.